Welcome to the Kingmakers podcast. Kingmakers is an elite accelerator for business buyers. We help entrepreneurs acquire their ideal business and provide them with the tools to succeed post-acquisition. I'm your host, Kylan Ginger. Join us as we explore and unlock the secrets to successful business acquisition, growth, and exiting strategies. Hey guys, so if you're enjoying the podcast and you want to take the next step in your business buying journey, there's a couple different ways that you can do this. First, check out our business buying workshop. The Kingmakers workshop will give you a backstage pass to a private equity firm that acquires and operates 6+ new businesses per year. This is an opportunity for you to peek behind the curtain and understand the entire process of finding, buying, and growing an online business. The workshop is limited to a small amount of serious business buyers, so you can count on it being intimate and you can plan on spending plenty of one-on-one time with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurs in the M&A space. So go to kingmakers.co/workshop. Again, that's kingmakers.co/workshop to get more information and to apply. Second, if you are serious about buying a business, I would love to have a quick chat with you and see how we can help. Go to kingmakers.co/call, tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then you can schedule a free consultation call, and we'll see what we can do. Again, that's kingmakers.co/call. Talk to you soon. What is up, business buyers, and welcome to another Kingmakers episode. Get stoked because today on the show we have Ryan Sorenson. Now, Ryan graduated from the University of Colorado in Boulder with a bachelor's degree in international affairs and business in 2009. During this time, he worked as an intern for the U.S. Embassy in Bern, Switzerland, and did a whole bunch of other travel. He can speak a few different languages. And then since graduating, he has built, bought, and sold several websites, and also launched Acquisition Station, which is a acquisition consultation firm for cash flowing websites and web-based properties. And you know, they're a website broker. And so since launching, they've managed over 2,500 U.S. and international sales clients, and they've completed 130 deals worth over $8 million and counting. And let me just tell you, this guy as a broker is fantastic. He has a lot of integrity, a lot of transparency, and he's also one of our partners at Kingmakers. And so I am very, very happy to have him on the show. And without further ado, let's get to it.
Like, have you ever wondered what the inside of, like, what brokers actually do? Like, what are some of the stuff that they, because I mean, like, everybody looks at us like, all right, they're just kind of a necessary piece of the puzzle. Like, what are they actually doing? Are they like scheming with each other? Are they kind of like talking to each other in the background, like, oh yeah, we can get this deal done? I mean, that's not the case at all. Like, we talk to each other, we're all friends with each other, but we don't actually work that often together, right? Because it's a small pool of us brokers that are working, so we're all fighting for leads, all fighting. Like, it's just regular business competition. So we're friendly, but it's not like we collaborate all the time, right?
Yeah, no, that's good to know. Yeah, when you sent me that email, the headline immediately flashed, in front of my eyes, like broker reveals, secrets that. So
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, like tell me. Well, I'd love to. Let's start with your background a little bit, because you seem like a pretty interesting dude. I mean, fluent in French and also proficient in German and Russian.
I'm only fluent in French when I'm drinking. And it's not even fluent. It's like semi-professional gibberish.
Oh, oui.
Yeah, I know, right? So yeah, my background is I grew up in Germany, and so then that was my first language. Learned German up to about like 3rd grade. But then after that, French, Russian kind of came into play. So I always wanted to work in kind of an international scope, and I was always interested in business. So I thought, what's the best way? Is internet, right? So I got inspired by reading articles on Warrior Forum, Income Diary, and stuff like that. And then I made a site and I sold it, and I couldn't believe that there's actually a market for it, that somebody bought my site. And then that kind of opened up the door and then turned into this whole career as a website broker.
What was it like growing up in Germany?
Dude, you go over there and it's like you go to the bakeries and it's just like, you can't really compare German bakeries, the bread they make, everything. I mean, obviously, like, you probably can relate because being from Washington, gray skies. But for me, gray skies are comfortable. It's home.
Yeah.
So I feel like in general, just opened up my mind to the possibilities of the international, just the world, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I bet it broadened your perspective. I know I was talking with Hayden, a couple weeks ago, and I was down there in Mexico, and we were talking and agreed that, for both his kids, and then I'm about to have my first. I think for our kids, like the two things that I really want them to do is have experience in some sort of entrepreneurship and travel. And I think it would just make the world a better place if more people did like those two things.
100%. I mean, something that we focus on is taking our kids on living experiences. So the first thing that we did, we took my son to Puerto Rico. We lived there for 3 months. And that's kind of actually when I got started online. I was doing like Warrior Forum special offers and starting to sell some of my own stuff, like making my site. And then after that, once our kids were a little bit older, we took them to New Zealand for 3 months. And then a couple of years ago, we took them to Sweden and Norway. So, and now they're both really interested in traveling, and they kind of see what different cultures are like and just keeping their mind open. So I think it's a great thing.
And how old are they?
They're 9 and 5. So now
Right
they're
on.
talking about, all right, what's the next trip that we're going to be taking? And so, yeah, they're all about it.
I love that, man. That's inspiring to me because, about to have our first and really trying to. We have a couple, brick and mortar businesses, and we've been trying to transfer things over to the more of the online space in order to have more of that kind of time and time freedom and mobility, basically. And so the goal is, after our first is maybe a year old, to really travel quite a bit and ideally live, maybe travel for a year and live, a few different places for 3-4 months at a time, something like that.
Absolutely, because if you're only there for a vacation and you're just doing tourism stuff, you're not really experiencing it. Like we try to stay with somebody, either Airbnb or try to come up with something else for long periods of time in one city, so you really get a feel for it.
Yeah,
I mean,
awesome.
and then of course, like with being online, people who are moving from a brick and mortar business or possibly like a career where you have a corporate career moving online, there's a huge transition. I mean, it's something we could probably talk about of having to work for yourself, working from home, working remotely. There's a whole world with that and a transition that you have to make. So it's not something that it can be a little bit difficult. So that's something to keep in mind when making that transition. If you're going just from 0 to 100 straight online, there's some things to consider, but we can catch up on that a little bit later.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's okay to go into it now, I think, like, because a lot of the people that I talk to, a lot of our clients and potential clients for Kingmakers, a lot of them are in that exact same position where they've worked in kind of corporate world for a long time, or maybe out of another office they have to drive to every day, and now we're looking at transitioning, possibly pretty abruptly, or at least within 3 months post acquisition, into having the kind of freedom to be able to work from wherever. So I'd be curious to hear, maybe your kind of journey to starting to work at home more, and what you've seen with some of the people you work with, and just in your own life, and kind of how you cut your teeth there in an online business in general, so to say.
Yeah, because with the idea, say you've been working for 15, 20 years and you only get like your 3 or 2 to 4 weeks of vacation every year. You think, oh man, if I could work from home, it would be great and I'd be able to do this and this. But once you're home, dude, I'm telling you, after a couple weeks, you might find yourself getting bored or unmotivated, or you can't motivate yourself to do it. And not everybody is built for that, to be your own boss, because you really have to tell yourself to do stuff. You have to have two sides of you. All right, I'm gonna get this done. Well, no, man, I just want to play Nintendo Switch and smoke weed or something, right? Like, no, you have to actually get work done. And unless you have that, unless you take, say, a few weeks or a couple months to actually do it and fill it out, you don't really know if you can handle it until you try it, right?
Yep.
There's a huge component of that. So I think it's just a matter of experiencing it before you realize how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, it's very true. And on the flip side too, at least personally, I've noticed, you can encounter, there's weeks like that where it seems harder to sort of motivate and push yourself and keep adding tasks and checking them off. But then there's also some weeks where there's a lot happening, and man, like I'll work like 12 straight hours and forget to eat, and my wife is constantly.
For you forget to eat too? I do too. Sometimes I'll like catch my wife coming down with food. I'm like, oh crap, it's 3 p.m. I forgot to eat. And then other days you're just like, oh, man, I got to come up with something to do. I don't know what to do right now. And then you look at your list of things that are kind of like those long-term tasks that you know you're supposed to be doing. You're just like, I don't know if I should be. I don't know if I could get myself to do those right now. So then you end up just not doing anything. So it's really something about figuring out your personality and how you can motivate yourself. And, you know, I mean, some people purposely join up with a partner who kind of keeps them in line, and that works out really well too. So you just got to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and you know, something that I know that's our ultimate vision for Kingmakers is to build this, you know, kind of elite community of business buyers, and to, you know, for sure start meeting up at least twice a year at our workshops. But beyond that, you know, meeting up even more frequently, because again, I know Hayden and I were talking, and he was just expressing, you know, because he's kind of a similar situation where, you know, I'm up in the mountains, I work from home. It can be kind of isolating, you know, which I do like on one hand. He's in a similar situation down there. Yeah, we were talking about that, and he's in a similar situation down there in Mexico. And but we were just talking. You have to have that perspective on yourself to realize when you've just gone too many days without seeing another human face, and you need to like connect with people and get maybe that bird's eye perspective and additional perspectives on what you're trying to accomplish. And so that's why I think the community aspect is so important in what we're trying to do.
Dude, the community thing is really important, especially with networking. That's a lesson that I learned pretty early on, because I'm pretty introverted. I like working at home. I like being by myself. But the networking thing is, I can't stress that enough. You go to conferences, you're meeting people, try to look at ways that you can help each other out. And without networking and without getting people on my side when it comes to the online journey, I wouldn't have been able to get here. I really wouldn't. And I highly recommend going to any kind of conference events, because then everybody, you know, that kind of energy that you get from conferences, you can't get that anywhere else. Yep. Everybody's pumped up. Everybody's on the same page. And everybody is in the same position, right? Like, you're a little bit nervous to talk to somebody, but when it comes down to it, everybody else is too. So there's really nothing to worry about. Yeah. Just there to help each other. So yeah, highly recommend conferences too.
Yeah. Now, just to touch a little bit more on kind of your personal life, does your wife or are your kids showing any interest in online business, or are they in any way involved?
Yes, absolutely. Me and my wife are actually starting a site. We're just getting it going, so I'm not going to plug it here or anything, but it's a content site, and it's focused on helping you live longer, but it's not just living longer, it's living more fully. So, I mean, you touch on like food and nutrition, mental health, social life, exercise, travel, that type of stuff. So yeah, she's getting involved with it. She's starting to write some content. We're getting it going. And now my son, he wants to be a YouTube content creator, and he's only 9. I'm like, all right, boom, there you go. So they're all on it.
Dude, there's some famous 9-year-olds that are on YouTube, man.
There is, man. That kid that does the toy reviews, he got started when he was like 5. And I guarantee you they're making millions every single
yeah.
Because he's one of the top channels. Like, he got it started early. That kid's set for life.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how many views those get.
Oh, it's crazy. But the online landscape for internet business it's insane now. I mean, anybody anywhere around the world can make something a success.
Yeah, it's neat that your wife and you guys are focused on kind of the health and wellness direction. That's where my wife is focused too, with kind of her site and her workshops she does. And so there might be a way to
nice.
collaborate there, put them in touch or something.
She's a nutritionist, so she's focused on anything to do with that, with food.
Yep. That's amazing, man. Have you read, just on that subject, have you read the book Blue Zones, or has she at all?
No, let me check it out.
Yeah, we would highly recommend that just for anybody listening too. Just it's a fascinating book. It's studying specific, geographic zones, around the world where people live longer than average, basically.
Yeah, and like so, the Mediterranean zone, I bet, is one of them.
Mm-hmm. Japan, some of those kinds of Japanese islands. Yeah, Loma Linda, actually, down there in California.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of rad.
So, anyways, worth checking out for people listening. It's a good read.
Okay.
But let's transition more into talking about you'd kind of mentioned broker tips and a few different things there. And so I'd love to talk. Let's hear about your experience as a broker and get some of this kind of insider information for some of our potential buyers listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the course of about 8 years now that I've been doing brokering, I'd say that closed just about 130 so deals. Not all of those deals have gone well. I mean, when it comes down to it, buying a site is just as risky as buying any kind of investment. There's going to be a chance of it not working out. And, I've definitely seen it. And if you want, we can kind of go into one of those examples.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just to kind of like show what possibility there is. So somebody actually took out all of the money that they had in their IRA to buy a site. And, when it comes down to it as a broker, I present the deal as good as possible. And I can't talk for other brokers because everybody has kind of their own style, but I feel like we're all on the same page of trying to present the deal in the best light possible.
Yeah.
Right. And so the business was fine. Everything looked good. He even had somebody check it out, a professional look over it and everything, but he was risking a lot by taking out his retirement savings. And unfortunately, a few months after he bought it, something happened to where the revenue was cut dramatically. And after a little while, the business started to tank. And, I just look at a situation like that and he just put too much at risk. Like say, for example, you have a money partner or maybe you got an SBA loan or some other way of leveraging and kind of being a little bit more risk averse. But he just put too much skin in the game and it didn't work out. And anytime something like that happens, it messes me up, man. Like emotionally for a couple weeks, it really jacks me up. And I've actually come to the point where I felt like quitting brokering, and I actually almost did a couple times based on some deals not working out, because you really feel for the people that you're working with. So that's one of that piece of advice that I really want to push is don't overextend yourself financially, as well as, in terms of your time commitment or possibly your resources on buying a deal. Just be smart about it, how you go into it.
Now, how much of those kinds of specific scenarios have you seen can be mitigated, more by just a more in-depth, due diligence process prior to the acquisition?
I'd say for the most part, most of them are. Like most of our deals have been a success, and there's been quite a few deals where something comes up in due diligence, like say you're partway through listing or like somebody hasn't actually bought it yet, but they're just kind of checking it out in due diligence. Somebody brings something up that they discovered. We're like, man, that's a huge problem. And we've actually pulled listings off the market and because of something that's come up. And that's happened quite a lot where say we miss something or, something comes up where maybe it got hit by a Google penalty while you're going on with the listing, and then you just have to take it off because, if you were in a position buying it, you wouldn't want to buy that. So something that we try to do is put ourselves in the position of a buyer, think, well, is this something that we would buy? And then if something comes up, then you got to think, is it still something I would buy? And if it's not, then you just got to pull it.
Yeah, which is exactly why you probably shouldn't quit brokerage, man. We need more brokers that think that way of the world.
Yeah, I try to just be as transparent as possible. And, if something comes up that was my fault as a broker for not doing good enough due diligence at the beginning or somewhere in between, then I admit it, I let them know, and try to come up with a solution. So yeah, that's just my approach. I can't speak for other brokers, but I feel like we're all trying to present in a transparent way, but you still have to do as much due diligence as you can because it's a big commitment. It's a huge, like some of these deals are pretty big, over a couple $1 million. But I'd say the typical buyer is going to be somebody who's been in a career for a while, saved up some money, and are looking to transition, or people who are looking to build up a portfolio. Either way, every deal should be looked at, whether it's $10,000 or $1 million, should be looked at exactly the same way, because you're still risking a lot. So you got to be smart about it.
Yep, 100%. Now, what advice, would you have from your experience working with buyers on helping people discover what the right kind of business model and niche is to get into, and they're kind of looking at this wide array of possible acquisitions?
All right, so if you look at a deal and you're just kind of like, meh, flatlined, then don't buy it. If you see it, you're just like, if you get that little flutter in your stomach, you're like, ooh, something clicks, then look into it, right? So you gotta be somewhat, not somewhat, you have to be interested in it, right? That's the first thing. And you have to think about what kind of business model actually suits your personality. Do you want to be writing content, or like managing people who are writing content all the time? Or do you want to be dealing with products? Even if it's a drop shipping business, you still have to think about the products. You got to be thinking about, you got to be thinking in a way. First off, you got to think about what business model you like. So you start to learn about it, and you get focused in on that. And beyond that, you got to be interested in the niche. I don't care if you're just looking at it as a more passive investment and try to hire it out, get a manager or whatever. It's still in your portfolio. You got to be proud of it. You got to be interested in it to stay on top of it. So that's one of them. Like I said, don't overextend yourself financially. So you have to have a good budget range and stick to it. And when it comes down to it, not everybody should be buying web assets. It's just the reality of it. I think that, people are built differently in terms of their risk, and they might think, hey, this is making a lot of money and there's good ROI potential. But if they're looking at running it themselves, maybe they're not going back to working from home, or possibly a business model or something else. Work ethic, there's a lot at play. Not everybody is a success with the stuff that they buy because of all these factors. So I just say it like that. Not everybody should be buying it, but I would say that I believe in these assets, and I believe in the future of this industry. So you should check it out.
Yeah, 100%. I think, speaking specifically for Kingmakers, that's, I think, why we found a pretty good product market fit, is because we are talking to people that I think we are filling kind of this little hole in the market of people that are very interested in these kinds of assets, but maybe aren't 100% prepared to come in and just run the day-to-day operations, because we do come in and we're kind of the I had one client describe it really well, is like, when you're bowling and you have kind of the bumper guards on either side, to keep you from running off into the trench there. That's a really good analogy, because if you don't, like, what you got going on is the bumpers. What people are doing is they've never bowled before, and then they're going to go and try to bowl, and then they wonder why they're hitting gutters. I totally agree with that. That's a good one for Kingmakers. Yeah. And then even beyond that, if we come in as partners on the deal, I know one of our responsibilities is to help, train up a general manager to take over, the day-to-day operations after a certain amount of time, maybe 3 to 6 months or so, and continue helping, the partner build the rest of their portfolio. And so, for people out there that are, a little bit more nervous from that perspective on just running the day-to-day operations, I think that's where we can help there. But to add again, to what you were saying about picking the right model and kind of niche, I think another good thing to focus on would be, what are your unfair advantages, or where does the majority of your quote unquote career capital reside? What kind of experiences do you have throughout your career that maybe you can play to in a specific model or a specific niche? And I think that's good to pay attention to. And then I actually heard something interesting off of the I think it's the Web Assets podcast from Empire Flippers, which that's really good. Love those guys. They're doing some great stuff. But they had an interesting test they called the stage test. Which is, could you get up on a stage in front of people and like present this business, up on like a slideshow or something, and be proud of it, right? And be like, I own this thing. or would you not be? And so I think all of those things can kind of factor in. But I'd be curious to hear, also in your experience in terms of like just deal structures. Let's talk about that for a bit. Like with your experience with sellers, what are the kind of deal structures that they seem to be the most open to? And, have you seen some specific examples of where buyers have missed out on deals or, got won over other buyers because of a certain deal structure? Maybe you could speak some to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So most of the time, sellers are open to some creative financing. By that, I mean seller note. They take on the note, or possibly an earnout scenario, or a holdback. So either nowadays, people are more open to that because it's becoming more of a norm. And of course, every single time that we put up a listing, we prep them on that's going to be what a lot of buyers are going to be looking into. So there is a situation recently where two people came in with some creative financing options, and the seller was not. I mean, they were keen on it. They were looking at them and they were being serious about it. But then somebody came in with, more cash up front. Of course, cash is king.
Right.
You're going to have a higher chance of getting the deal if you put up more cash, and that's going to be across every single broker is going to want that for their sellers, because
pretty much every asset too.
Yeah, I mean every single asset, everything. Yeah. But when you look at how online deal structures are compared to offline business acquisitions, I mean they're only putting up like 20 to 40% or so cash up front, and that's pretty standard. Mm-hmm. So in terms of online, I feel like sellers are leaning more towards having some more creative financing options, or at least being open to it, because it's consolidating a little bit with some of the offline space, because you get a lot more buyers now that are traditionally in real estate or buying offline businesses that are coming online now. So I feel like that's going to consolidate a little bit more, whereas you don't need as much cash up front. But of course, suggestion is try to get as much as possible and keep the duration of your after sale creative financing to, I'd say, under 12 months. Because if it goes beyond that, I mean, internet businesses, they're not on the same kind of time frame as the offline business, where you're looking at like a restaurant or something that's been around for 20 years. For internet businesses, it's kind of like having dog years or something, right? Like for one internet business,
it's a great way to put it.
It's like 3 or 4 offline business years. So you got to look at it a little bit different with that. So you can't come in with like 7 years of creative financing. I had a buyer come in once with that. I'm like, I can't even show this to the seller. It's only been online for 2 years. I mean, he's like putting it down for 7 years. So you got to ask us brokers how willing the seller is and what kind of stuff they're open to, because everybody's open to different things. Like some people might be cool with the seller note for a certain percentage. So you could ask specifically like what percentage of the total consideration would the seller be willing to take on. And then, we're going to give you some clues. We're not going to tell you straight up what it is, but we'll give you some clues.
Yeah, that's great to know, man. And the dog years example. That's a
internet, yeah.
Internet years. I love that. It's a great way to put it. And speaking of that, like that's a decent transition into like I'd love to hear from your perspective. Where you see things trending, just as far as like the broker industry, listing prices, the overall market, things like that. What's your perspective on that?
So. People might have already been able to see, but brokers are specializing more. I feel like that's going to be a regular thing going forward. It's something that we're doing is we actually opened up a little side brokerage. It's a marketplace for just cannabis listings, anything cannabis or CBD related online properties. And you're going to get people are already specialized in, say, e-commerce or SaaS or foreign language type of stuff. But that's going to be a normal thing. So get to know your brokers and figure out who's specializing in what, because obviously if you're specializing in it, you have the buyers for it, and then you have more sellers who are coming in. So you have more opportunity with those specialized. Something else that's coming up is there's going to be more regulation. And that's kind of always been on the back of our minds is, say, when is the general like real estate licenses going to kick in? Do brokers need this or that? Depends on the state. But that's going to be something that probably will happen more because this is becoming much more of a viable alternative asset class. I'd say that it's gonna get the attention of lawmakers eventually, and then there's gonna be some kind of regulation. So some brokers might get it.
Have you put any?
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a great point. Have you put any thought to, like, I mean, it's a long shot question, but like how they would track that stuff?
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at it, like I've done deals where the buyer was from Belgium and the seller was from Germany, and I'm over here in the States, in California.
Right.
Like, how do you deal with that, right? And there's a lot of time where buyer or seller international or from different states and this and that. Traditionally, like, business brokers are based in one state, and then they only deal with their state or their city. So there's a lot of stuff up in the air, and every single broker, we've all had these conversations. We're all at different levels of like taking action on it. But in general, that could be something that's going to come up. And so you might see some brokers, actually some website brokers, getting bought up by say traditional business brokerages that are trying to get in online, or real estate companies, or brokers falling off because of regulation. But that could be a trend. Something else is there's going to be a lot more buy side rep for buyers, and I think that's a good thing, because most of the time it's just been seller rep, and then who's got the buyers back. So there's more buy side consultants, buy side brokerages popping up, and private equity companies like yourself that are coming up and helping buyers do due diligence and finding deals. And so I think that's a good thing, because buyers, they sometimes get screwed over, and having the help on due diligence, or just having an option to work with somebody like yourselves where they don't have to actually make the effort to learn everything that they need to be successful, or just to mitigate their risk. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, all sounds pretty much along the lines of what we've been discovering and talking about as well. It'll be interesting. We'll see.
Yeah.
In terms of this kind of topic of broker secrets, is there anything else that you feel comfortable being transparent with about kind of what goes on that sellers or buyers may not be aware of, obviously without sharing anything too specific, or even I'd be curious to hear of, you talked about one deal that didn't go so good. What are some of your top deals that have just gone really, really well that you've seen?
Oh yeah. So the first thing is if you're a buyer, don't be a dick and waste a bunch of time by going through the entire process, putting in an offer, and then making it all the way into escrow or something, and then deciding to pull out. Like, there's opportunity to do due diligence enough to the point where you think, all right, this isn't going to work out. Pull out sooner. It's going to keep you from being on the blacklist. All right.
Yeah. So there's a blacklist, huh?
The blacklist. Okay. So there's a blacklist. It does happen, and we do let each other know of people that can be even dangerous. There was one other deal that I like I said, I feel bad about every single one of these deals that don't work out. But one buyer actually pretended to be pretty interested. He seemed genuine, went through the whole process. We qualified him, everything. But he took some very competitive information and started a competing company based off of the one that we were selling.
Oh man.
And it was like it destroyed the guy's business after he took it off, because there was some competitive stuff. And I put him on the blacklist, and I notified all the other brokers about him, because if he's going around and doing something like that, I mean, it's not only illegal because he signed an NDA, but it was just horrible for the person that bought the business. So
seriously.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a blacklist. Just try to stay open to, or what I'm saying is, be open-minded about what you're doing in terms of the seller's time, the broker's time. You don't want to just lead them on and then pull out right at the end, because it's going to ruin your chances of buying a business later on, because sometimes we do talk.
Just like, be a considerate person.
Yeah, please. Yeah, pretty much. Just be considerate. Yeah. Oh, so some other stuff is that we go through a ton of leads, right? And we don't list everything, but that doesn't mean that it's not that there's not opportunities that aren't being listed. So ask us, we might have something that actually matches that might not have been a good fit for the general buyer list, but it might actually be a great fit for what you're looking for. So we have listings that we haven't put up that, just ask us about it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And do you have any one deal or maybe a couple that stick out in your mind as just one that went really, really well that,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
So there's this guy bought it. It was this e-commerce store that was selling TV boxes from China. So it was actually people from China or that speak Mandarin or Cantonese here in the States. And so they're watching TV shows from China. So he bought it for $25,000. And over the next 9 months, he was able to, I think, like 5-fold the revenue or something. It was crazy. And then we sold it for over 300,000. So you do the math on what kind of ROI that was.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
That was, and not that many people were interested in the business. It was almost like he was taking a shot in the dark, but he saw what other people didn't see in terms of the potential of the business, and he just ran with it.
Did he have any competitors that you knew of?
Yeah, there were definitely competitors. Yeah. He just did his thing with that thing, man. It was incredible. Another one is a site that we sold 3 different times. So somebody bought it, kept it for like a year. We sold it again. Somebody else bought it, kept it for a year, and it kept going up in price every single time. But it was 3 different owners for the same property.
Wow.
I know. And actually,
was there like a specific reason behind that, or just kind of a
no, it just turned out it was just one of those weird things where people buy it and like, how there's people that just buy and sell stuff all the time. That's just their business model, right? Some people buy it for a job replacement and a long-term hold. Other people are just going to keep it for like a year. And it just happened to be that site was one of those that people just bought, kept for a little bit, and then sold. And every single one of them made a return on their investment 3 times.
That's amazing.
And yeah, I gotta plug you guys. Well, with Wired Investors, we sold a deal to them, and from what I know, it's done pretty good. So yeah, that was another one. It was a content site about blogging. So
yep, for sure. Yeah, it's been doing well. Love it,
dude. Luckily, there's way more good deals than bad deals. I mean, the bad deals I'm talking about are like a fraction of all the deals that we've done. So. And I think that's the case for everybody. But we've all sold deals. Every broker has deals that they're not proud of. It's like keeping something in your drawer next to your bed or in the closet tucked under some clothes or something you just don't want anybody finding out about, not even your wife. You just kind of tuck them away. You learn from them. That's important. You learn from them, but you try to tuck it away. But every single broker have some of those. I guarantee it.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about them on the show and for people to hear. I mean, always love that sort of transparency. But in terms of Acquisition Station and this other brokerage you're kind of starting up, like what I'd love to plug it a little bit. And you'd mentioned specializing, or brokers specializing more. Do you guys specialize in some things or not yet? What type of buyer or seller is kind of the best fit for you? I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you have going on for a second.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. We specialize in pretty much everything. I mean, we got everything: e-commerce, SaaS, content sites. But something that we do is foreign language. So I look at it as an emerging market. You look at, say, Latin America, and they might be 5 to 7 years behind the U.S. in terms of their progression with internet business. But you look at Europe. We look at all of those as opportunities, especially because most of the time the sellers are willing to sell for cheaper, and also to kind of put it into a place where buyers would be interested. We have lower multiples on those. But I look at those as just as good as anything in English because you still have the same components. I mean, they're making money. And if you look at them, say like a 3-year-old e-commerce shop that's focused on one country, that might even be better because you have your market and it's established. That's not going anywhere. It's no different than any other property. So I look at foreign markets as a huge opportunity. So that's something we focus on. And then, of course, I guess some of those fringe markets like cannabis is something that we're exploring. So we're open to pretty much anything. We got all sorts of listings, but yeah, the foreign one and kind of more of those fringe markets. We haven't done any adult or gambling or anything like that, but there are brokers that do the adult side, and I'm sure they're killing it.
Is that a personal choice or?
Yeah, I mean, partly that, also because I don't think that generally buyers are. It's not something they would be proud of. That would be one of those like, yeah, I own a business. It's making like $1 million a month, but I can't tell my mom about it, right? He's like, how are you making? Are you a drug dealer, Tommy? No, I'm not. I just own a porn website. Yeah, you want to be proud of what you own, right? So, and that's something that we're generally like where buyers are at. They want to be proud of it.
Yeah, love it, man. Well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, Ryan. I'd be curious to hear, for people listening that are thinking of, let's do a 2-part question here. For people listening that are thinking of selling a business, but haven't made that step yet, and people that are thinking of buying a business that haven't made that step yet, what parting, piece of advice you would leave them? And so I'll leave it up to you which buyer or seller you want to address first. But
all right, let's go with sellers. Sellers, please get your finances in order, even if it's just a simple income statement. If you have that prepared and you're keeping track of it, that's going to help out big time. I mean, because when it comes down to it, you can always get a valuation from us for free. Pretty much any broker is going to give a valuation for free, and there's no obligations. Like I think that getting a valuation, figuring out where your business is at, even if you're not looking at selling it yet, is a smart idea. You can look at a 6-month plan from now and say, what can I do to improve the valuation? And always be thinking about the exit. So get your finances together and consider options to reduce your owner requirements. So say if you're handling a task and it takes 10 hours a week to do it, look at maybe hiring that out. Try to lower the commitment, because people want as passive of a business as possible. But if they're looking at it and it's like a 30 or 40 hour a week job that they're buying, they're not going to be that interested. So try to lower that. So that's just a couple things. One other thing for sellers, and I actually tell sellers this pretty much every time: look at other brokers, get other valuations, talk to everybody. Because obviously I could lose business that way, but in the interest of the seller, you want to know where a bunch of different price points are at for your business. And of course you can negotiate on our commission too. It's not a secret that everything is negotiable. So, I mean, don't be afraid to broker shop. Yeah. That's pretty much what I'm saying. In terms of buyers, having a set plan of what you want to do with a budget, and like I said, be considerate and be committed. So when you're looking at something, I mean, obviously your chances are going to be higher if you show that commitment. Get on the phone with us, because if we get to know you, you're going to have a higher shot of getting an email before anybody else does about a new listing that comes up, or just being on our short list of buyers that we like working with. So give us a call. Get to know us.
Fantastic, man. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, folks, you are the average of the 5 people you hang around the most, and today you've been hanging out with Ryan and Kylan, learning how to build your business empire. For more information or to get in touch, head over to kingmakers.co, and always remember to build beyond business. Hey business buyers, if you loved what you heard today and you feel like we've earned it, subscribe to the podcast and head over to iTunes to leave us a 5-star rating and review. This helps us out a ton, and we love to read your comments. Thanks so much.